So, Rachel and I have been playing together for ages, about 12 years, I think.
Yep.
And actually, Rachel found me.
I recruited you. So I've been really interested in northeastern Brazilian music for a long time, and I was looking to form a band based on flutes and percussion, and I heard about this incredible flute player here, so we went for a coffee and have been together playing ever since. And then we decided to kind of bring the band with a slightly new formation and slightly modern sound. So then we kind of reformed it last year.
Yeah.
And have been playing together ever since.
Yeah.
So with bass and vocals instead of just flute and percussion.
Yeah, because we had an original setup all those years ago, which was 2 flutes and 3 percussion, which is a bit more how they are back in Brazil. And so we've changed it a bit.
Yeah.
We sort of brought it into a bit more of a contemporary twist.
Yeah.
So, these are bamboo flutes, pífanos, and actually it does actually say, you can read it there, it's really hard to see that.
Made by my friend in Brazil, pífano. But yeah, these flutes, this tradition came from the northeast of Brazil with mixes of influences. So from European influences of fife and drum bands that came over from the Dutch invaders in the 1600s to African rhythms. Mostly the African element is the rhythmic element. And the flutes themselves, I think the bamboo and the bamboo flute tradition came very much from the indigenous communities around that region. So yeah, very, very culturally mixed.
Yeah, but these are actually made in the same ways that bansuri flutes are. So like in India, and it's tuned the same. They're kind of interchangeable. But these are definitely the Brazilian versions. But yeah, so it's the same sort of material, bamboo, and the tuning. So.
Traditionally in the northeast of Brazil, an orchestra de pífano has 2 flute players, often playing in harmony, and sometimes to the Western ear it can seem out of tune, but actually the flutes are beautifully tuned with each other. A pairing, they call pareia, a pairing of pífanos. And usually with 3 percussionists accompanying, sometimes for religious ceremonies, sometimes for, parties. That was they have been in existence. There's the most famous band of pífanos, de Caruaru, which was from a small city in Recife, Pernambuco in the northeast. And that has been going on for about 200 years. So it's a very strong tradition there.
I studied at Leeds Uni on the performance BMAS course, and so I was doing very classical music, and then I went on to do a master's in performance, and I went down a sort of a career of being a flute soloist quite classically, but I actually got quite bored. So I was looking for other things to make me feel excited about playing music and feeling like this is my identity, but it just wasn't working with who I am as a human. So I needed to find other things, and so I just started going into explorative improvisation, working with lots of different types of art forms and dance forms, and just literally I found it like my tool in order to exist in like a much bigger creative sphere, I think. And then so this is like a part of my identity, like bringing it into that.
Nice. My musical journey. I started off with a Brazilian flute teacher, so played Brazilian music from a young age, and then she left back to Brazil, and I continued studying classical music, studied at the Junior Academy in Birmingham University, and similarly to Rosanna, I didn't quite find it was my niche, so I also studied languages at university because I was really interested in language and culture of pretty much of Latin America. From a young age I've been very interested in that. And then I went over to Argentina on my year abroad, and from there went to Brazil. I spent 2 months on my own in Brazil and fell in love with the music and culture, and then subsequently went over to live a few times in Brazil. I've been there like, 5 times, constantly going, re-injecting myself with my love for Brazilian music. Basically since graduating from uni, I've played Brazilian music in lots of different contexts because, there's many, many genres of Brazilian music. But I've also played music from all over the place, including Irish music and jazz, world, Colombian music, Cuban music.
Yeah, exactly. Just sort of it's
music.
Like a toolbox.
Yeah.
Our debut gig was so good. It was brilliant, wasn't it?
We were really surprised. We were kind of terrified before because, we're from London. It's always tough to get a crowd down. Like, oh, no one's going to come to see this band that doesn't have any Instagram presence because we're brand new.
Yeah.
So we had to well, we didn't have to do that much pushing to get people down because actually we ended up massively overselling. It was like really squished, but an amazing vibe. Like everyone was dancing, everyone was super, super supportive. We had amazing feedback at the end. Loads of Brazilian people came down and said it was just an incredible experience. They brought them back. Yeah, people were dancing forró, which is a couple dance
so
from the northeast of Brazil.
But I think also there was like a really big mix of people. There were flute players who'd never heard this kind of playing or seen these kind of instruments before. There were non-musicians, loads of non-musicians, and then also loads of musicians that also haven't heard this kind of music. And all ages, actually, which was really so nice to see, like all ages. And so much dancing, so much singing, and it was also really nice because we had a whole load of people that with beautiful voices in the crowd, so they were joining in with us. And but we sold out before the doors even opened, and then we had to release 50 more tickets on the door. So it was really fantastic, and we're so looking forward to whatever comes in the future.
Absolutely.
So as I said, Rachel basically recruited me. I was actually playing Cuban music and Jewish folk music before, so I was down a bit of a rabbit hole of going, I'm gonna do Cuban music, this is what I'm doing. And she was like, can we do Brazilian? And I was like, no, I'm doing Cuban music. And then when I started,
ended up going to Cuba.
We did go to Cuba together, and that was great.
It was.
But so I got the bug basically after that.
And I got the bug many years ago. My first ever flute teacher was from Brazil. So I grew up playing this kind of music. Choro, a different style of music. Choro, bossa nova, forró, all loads of styles of Brazilian music. And then I ended up studying Spanish and Portuguese, living in Latin America and Brazil, and really getting the bug. Absolutely loving it. And I've been kind of working in Brazilian contexts for since I graduated, basically. Playing another band, Alvorada. Again, it's choros, it's kind of a lot of community music. It's similar to an Irish session, playing around in circles. That's really, it's been a long time.
I've just realised, actually, before I knew Rachel, I was playing in a samba band. So that's really where my roots and understanding of the percussion and the grooves really set in very easily and very quickly, but it really gave me a huge foundation to be able to just actually sort of skyrocket off with that. Otherwise, I think without that grounding, it would have just been melodies without this underpinning and understanding how the rhythm works. So that was great.
Yeah, I also studied in the same samba band, and fantastic teacher.
But not together, so totally separately. So the style of music that we're playing, to the best of our knowledge, just doesn't exist in the UK. So we play Brazilian bamboo flutes, pífanos, and so all this music is very rootsy, and we've not come across anything like this.
It's also very rare in Brazil. So this music is from rural communities in the northeast of Brazil. Often Afro-Brazilian communities, sometimes women playing and singing at the same time. And singing very much about their backgrounds, their hardships, life on the sertão, which is the kind of desert region of the Brazilian northeast. And until a few years ago, this music was entirely unknown in Brazil. It's only quite recently that there's a flute player who's gone from Rio, Carlos Malta, who went over to Brazil and did a lot of research on this type of music, and he formed a band in Brazil, and that band has then kind of been really successful. But before that, this music was entirely unheard, and certainly in the UK. Also in our band, we have the incredible Inês Lobet on vocals. So Inês is from Portugal, but from for a long time she's been working in a Brazilian context. She studied in the same samba band as us, and now she teaches Brazilian music at the Guildhall, and she teaches vocals as well. But she's really, really incorporated music from Brazil into her essence. And she's lived in Brazil as well, so it's fantastic having her on board. She also plays many percussion instruments. And our other instrumentalists, Julio from São Paulo in Brazil. He actually has a very rock background, but from having been born into Brazilian culture, he's fascinated in Brazilian music from all different styles. So he plays a lot of samba, plays a lot of forró, which is one of the styles that we play a lot of. It's great having him on board as well, because he adds kind of a more urban, bassy edge.
But he's also a vocalist. So you'll hear that
voice. And on this gig is Eloá Nascimento, who he was born into music. His two parents were musicians and performing musicians. So actually Eloá was on stage at about 12 years old. And he's an incredible percussionist, plays all kinds of percussion instruments and a very creative musician. So we're really happy to have him on board.
Yeah.
The name Olayá came about because in Brazil, when people are singing together, they always sing Olayá. So we decided to use the name exactly, Olayá, Olayá, Olayá. So the name for us is really strong. It's about singing together. It's about unity, and it's about community, because actually everybody who goes to a gig in Brazil will always sing Olayá.
Yeah. Collectively, straight away. Yeah. It's beautiful.
So that's what we're about.
Follow us on Instagram. We are Olayá.band.
Spelt Olaya.
And if you want to hear what it sounds like, it's like this.
Laya, laya, Olaya, laya, laya. Laya, Olaya, Olaya, laya, laya.